Our last formal question, our last hot topic, is what keeps you up at night? And really it's what worries you, what excites you, what makes you nervous. What are those things keeping you up at night?
I think one thing that worries me a little bit is sometimes the federal and state impacts on local control in local municipalities. Sometimes there's changes that are even unintended that kind of move through our state or move through legislation that can really impact our local community. There was some efforts a year or so ago to change some ways that we have our local option sales tax, which is a voter approved tax that we use to invest back into the community, and some issues or interest in wanting to pull some of that back to the state. And so advocacy efforts around that and just some of those changes, how they can affect us.
Okay, what keeps me up at night is the recent legislative efforts to control property tax. We all agree that that's important, but we can't raise our property tax. I'm going to read this. We cannot increase our property tax collections by more than the greater of the state and local consumption expenditures index, SLICE, or 0% times deflation. God bless Lane Kazire for understanding this, and all of the financial directors that get this, but it's very restrictive. And we do agree that property taxes need to be controlled, but it's getting complicated. And the governor's sent out a strong message to say that they're not done yet. So I think something that Scottsbluff can brag about is we reduced our mill levy for the third consecutive year. It's 0.178. It's the lowest in the state. I don't know that we've ever been the lowest in the state, but we are now. So you're probably going to hear me talk about that quite a bit. So we'll be bringing that up. But we are concerned about the legislative futures, and we're paying attention. We're heavily involved in those conversations. So,
and that is time.
Okay, what keeps me up at night is also what drives me to get up in the morning too. So there's two things that I'd like to just touch on. The first one is school safety, and it is so important, as you know, nationally in regards to keeping our schools, our children safe. And we've got a very aging facility, Garing Middle School. Some of those parts of Garing Middle School are over 70 years old, and it does keep me up at night knowing that we really need to act on that, and we really do need to pass a bond campaign. Last year, our bond campaign failed by 450 votes. And so what keeps me up at night is knowing how to work with our community to see the need, to see that this is something that is critical for the learning and the protection of our students. And then the other thing is I really think about our communication. We're in an age where social media is our means of communication, which is really great to showcase all the great things that are going on at school, but also it's a way that we have patrons that express their frustration, and there's a lot of misinformation that goes on with social media. And what I would encourage is that we can have these positive conversations, come to board meetings, and it opens up the door for us to have a dialogue with you so that we know what your frustrations or concerns are, and we can proactively address the issues that are going on in the community and how you feel about our school district.
So what worries me? I will tell you that what worries me right now more than anything else is our national politics and the direction that our country is headed in. You know, in his first inaugural address, Abraham Lincoln said, "We must not be enemies, but we must be friends." And it would sure be nice to hear that from more of our elected officials at the highest level. Now, I will tell you this. At the local level, nobody cares about national politics. These are not the things we're talking about. We're talking about mill levies, and we're talking about board policies, and things like that. So in that way, that's good. It does impact us in this direction. So the federal Board of Education, like if that goes away, that's fine. But whatever your feelings about that, there are 47 jobs at Scottsbluff Public Schools that will impact. And that's jobs that will have to come out of tax dollars, or we have to cut those services, or we're gonna have to do something else. Now, I will also say that going forward, we have a great model, okay? At the school, we have employees who range from conservative to liberal, and I will tell you it doesn't matter. right? Because the focus is we're educating kids. Nobody cares what your politics are when you're teaching algebra, okay? So the board itself, the board is nonpartisan. We don't talk about national politics. We talk about tax rates. We talk about, what are we going to do about this building or that building, whatever. And we have a communication that is open and respectful. We listen to each other. Everybody has a chance to be heard. Finally, this type of gathering, right? We come together, not to complain about this, not to complain about that, but we come together to stand and say, what can we do to make our community better? And that cuts across a lot of partisan interests, and I think we could do, again, if we could take this model and give it to everybody, I'd go up for that.
So what keeps me up at night, similar to everyone on the stage, I think, it's funding. We really struggle with funding. As a service organization, our main expenditure is salaries. And so, going from a $9 minimum wage in 2022 to now $15 an hour in 2026, that's hit our organization really hard. We're trying to figure out, yet at the same time, our parks department, whether it's fertilizer or mowers or everything we spend money on is really increasing in price. And at the same time, we've got some aging facilities that need to be addressed. Our library is a really good example. If you haven't been in the Gering Library in recent years, you should really check it out because they have done amazing things on a shoestring budget. I really have to give them credit. They've moved the children's section downstairs. They've made a really great place for families to bring their kids and just play and spend time. They've really seen an increase in people doing that. At the same time, it's an aging facility and there's some serious ADA challenges. It was built before we had today's technology, and so they really don't have enough electrical infrastructure for the computers that they would like to have. And so they're also just running out of space. So we're looking at doing some pretty major renovations there. We're excited to have a foundation that is going to be raising funds for that, but I just wish we had more city funds that we could put towards that as well. And then the last thing I'd like to touch on is that a large portion of our general fund budget does come from a 1% sales tax. And that is a tax that was approved in 2016 by voters, and that is going to be up for renewal in 2026. And that contributes over $700,000 to our general fund, which of course is what pays for parks, police, fire, library. And so we are really hoping that the voters, again, will see the value of that and that they will support renewing that sales tax, because if they don't, it's going to be really challenging for us to continue to provide the same services that we're currently providing.